Okay, so we had a request on the Inventables forum um, from Evan. Said, "All right, this might seem like a stupid question, but someone help me make my first 3D carving from an image." Now, this is not a stupid question. This is actually a great one. This is where everybody starts, and this is what everybody wants to do. So, I'll walk you through a quick down and dirty on how to create your first carve. All right, and so kind of roll with this. Now, this is my third time trying to do this because first time I screwed up and recorded it without sound. The next one, I didn't even record it. I went through the entire process thinking that recording was started. So I can see that my little red light is blinking, so I'm good. So if you look here at your image, the image is pretty clean. It's good. It's exactly what you want, right? Clean edges. So let's go ahead and we'll start with this. Now, we're going to use Fusion 360 and the Universal GCode Sender. It's free, it's cheap, it's easy, and now if you had like Aspire or something, you could probably just import this and set it up, but um, we're just going to go with what you got. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to take your image, we're going to save your picture as, and we're going to call it evan.jpg. Evan, really? Screw it. Alright, call it this. I don't know why my computer's goofing up. Evan, save. Okay. Evan, save it. All right, so now we have your picture. Now, if you didn't have this set up, right, if it didn't look right, or you needed the edges cleaned up, or you want to do something more detailed, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to plug this guy here. You go to Fiverr.com, look up this guy here. His name is Vibrations. All right, that's his URL, fiverr.com/vibrations. He will take your graphic and for $5 convert it to a high-res JPG, which is what you want it to be for the next step. But he will convert it over for you for $5, and he'll take a sketch. If you like sketch it up, he'll go ahead and he'll put really nice lines on it, do the shading that you wanted. He'll convert it over for $5. Best thing you could do. All right. Once you have that, you're going to go to this website called Vectorization, vectorization.org. All right. So we'll go here to the home. We're going to browse. We're going to select our JPG file. We'll hit open. Now we're going to do the output format as SVG. We'll hit start, and it's going to go ahead and create an SVG file, which is basically the graphic. And you can't see it here, but this is the boundary, right? The boundary starts here, 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 and here. So that's a square. We're going to go ahead and right click this, save link as, and we'll dump this into our folder. Now we're going to come over here to our Fusion 360. Select this over to inch. We'll hit OK. All right, so when we start this out, we always select the front. Now you may be thinking, oh, we got to start at the top. No, we start at the front. So here's the front, and we're going to go ahead and import this, and we're going to cut this out to be 5 inches by 5 inches. All right, so here's our 5-inch mark, 5-inch mark. This is the area that we're going to bring it into. So we'll go here to Insert, SVG. We're going to select our bottom plane. We'll come over here, we'll select our SVG. Now when it imports, it's going to import it and it's going to be huge. Literally like crazy huge. 300 inches, right? We don't want that. We want to bring that down to human level. And you'll see these two little arrows here. Here you can drag and adjust the size. If you go too far up here, it'll restart. So we'll just go here. Alright, so we're going to go right about 5 inches. And we'll kind of go here. Leave a little bit of room, because we need to. Alright, so we have a 5-inch board that we're going to cut this into. You can adjust it to whatever you want. You may want to make it 10 inches, whatever. Doesn't matter. An SVG is scalable vector graphic, so you can make it 2 inches or you can make it 200 inches. Does not matter. But for this, we're going to go ahead and we're going to do right about 5 inches. So we'll hit OK, and now it brings in your graphic. And it's already drawn up and everything, so you don't have to worry about it. Alright, now we're going to cut this into a 5-inch board. Alright, now you're going to go ahead and select it. Right click, press pull, and we're just going to make this 0.5 inches. Now you can just stop here if you wanted to, right? And now you have your 5-inch piece. Simple. But that's not what we're doing. Come back here, we'll turn on the sketch. This has got to come out because we're just going to carve the rest of the detail into it. That'll be 5 inches. Now this we only want to do, we want to carve in 1/10 of an inch. So I'm going to come here. I'm going to select these pieces. Now I hold down Control when I do that. Right click, repeat, press pull. In this case we're going to go 0.4 inches, which is going to bring it up to 1/10. This will be a join. Now you can do a join, a cut, intersect, whatever. We're doing a join. So it's all one piece, but when we look at it from the side, you'll see here that it's got the engraving on here, right? So it's kind of bumped in. Alright, so there's our image. First thing we want to do is we are going to go to File, Save, and we'll go ahead and we'll dump this into the first project, right? And we're going to call this Evans Gamer Tag, and then we'll hit save. Alright, so we have the image. Now we got to set up the cam for it. We're going to go to Cam, select that to be inches again. Alright, so let's do our first setup. So we'll do a new setup. Now, see this right here? This is your starting point. This is your 0, mark for your whatever you're building. Okay, it's center of your stock. So let's go here to stock. We're going to do a fixed box size. Okay, so we have a 5-inch piece of wood that is 5.5 inches tall. See how it created that? It's 1/2 inch thick, and we're going to round up to the nearest 5 or half every time. Alright, so now the yellow part here is your board. So if we look at it from the side, here's the board. Alright, so we have this. Now we're going to do our cuts. Before we do anything else, we know that we're going to use 2 different bits on this, right? Because you can't cut with an engraving bit that you're using up here. So we're going to go ahead and we are going to copy, come up here to Operations, we'll hit Paste. This we're going to call Step 1. This we'll call Step 2. We'll go ahead and select Step 1. New operation, 2D milling, and we're going to do a 2D pocket cut. We'll come up here to select. Now, you've probably set up all your tools or you didn't know you needed to. We'll go here to sample inches. Now, I'm going to use a 1/16, right, because it's a relatively small bit. I picked it up at Ace Hardware for, I don't know, $8. It's just a 1/16 bit, and yeah, here we go. So I have 0.25 inch cutting area and then the rest is tool. We'll select this at 2200 RPM, which is what our thing is. Coolant is disabled. Okay, we're not using coolant on this. I know you're going to want to say, well, you know, we're using air coolant. You don't have an air coolant on there. Okay, unless you have something set up, but I don't think the XCarve is set up to understand any of these. So just leave it disabled. For geometry, we're going to go ahead and select the pieces that we want to carve out. Now you can do each one of these separately if you wanted to, but you don't need to because we're doing it all one tool. Heights, retract height, I always put that to 0.2 inches because there's no real other clearance, right? What's going to happen is it's going to finish a cut, then it's going to come up, then it's going to move over to the next starting point, go down, do the carve. So this just is more of a time saver, but it's what you want to do. Okay, we'll come over here to passes. Now, stock to leave means we're going to leave this much. Now, if you were going in there with two different tools and you were going to go ahead and do what's called rest machining, you would, over here in geometry, you would say we're going to do rest machining, we're going to leave, you know, this much space here, and we're going to come in with an even smaller bit and clean it up. We don't have to for this. We would do that. So we're not going to mess with rest. We are not going to do any stock to leave. We don't need to do multiple depths. Now, if you're cutting this out of plexiglass or you're cutting it out of aluminum, do multiple depths. And, you know, this means, okay, we're going to do the first cut, then we're going to go down, and then we'll do the next layer of cuts, go down again, next layer of cuts. We're not doing that because it's wood, and you can do it with this. The next part is ramping, right? For this, we're just going to do plunge because we can just plunge right into the stock and start our cuts. We're only going down 1/10 of an inch, and we're going into wood with a metal bit, so we're fine there. Allow rapid retract is fine. Keep tool down, which means don't lift it up between cuts. Keep it down as much as possible. When you're doing engraving, you want to turn that off. Like if you're gonna, like if there was a place here where it needed to come back up, you would go ahead and you'd turn that off. You can play with it later and figure it out. So we'll go ahead and we'll hit OK. And then what it's going to do is it's going to generate your tool path. So this is your cutting path. If you want to see what that actually is going to look like, we can go simulate, and we'll go stock. We'll turn the stock on. We'll turn off the tool path. We'll speed this up a little bit, and we'll hit start. And then you'll see the little bit up here run through, and it's going to go ahead and trace through everything. Now, as it's doing that, you'll see how it lifts up, comes over, like, turn on tool path. See that yellow mark? That means that it's going to lift up here. Come over to it. Cleans up. Okay, see how it lifted up? And it'll come over. See how it's doing that? Alright. So you can play with that later. We'll close that off. Okay, we're good. Next thing we need to do is we need to cut the contour, the outside of it. So what we're going to do here is we're going to go ahead and we're going to do a new operation, 2D milling, 2D contour cut, which is an outside cut. For this, we're going to use a 3/16, which is a tool that I built in here, flat bit. Now I've got a 1/2 inch of clearance on here. I know this, so I can use this to cut my next contour cut, and that's the smallest bit I have that'll handle that. Now you may be able to go out and get a routing bit or something else. There's also something you can get. Now I go to Rockler, right? Actually, you might be able to go to Amazon and select a 3mm to 1/4 inch adapter. let's see. Let's throw the word router in there. And you will see, I know Rockler has it. Go ahead to Rockler, and we'll just go 1/4 inch. Really. Adapter. Nope. Let's see if we can find one of these. Okay, you'll see one of these. All right, and you can find one of these to fit 3mm and 4mm, or 1/4 inch, 1/8 inch, whatever. And that way you can use rotozip bits with your 1/4 inch router. Okay, and it's basically just a collet reducer. All right, and you can get them on, let's try Amazon again, and we'll just call it adapter. Right, 1/4 inch to 1/8 inch. Boom, here you go. $8. You can find a 3mm one. So you can basically use whatever size bit you want. You can go ahead and get a cheap one, or you can get a cheap pack of 6 over at Home Depot for $6. All right, helps out a lot. Anyways, we're just going to use a 3/16. Again, we're going to disable this. We're going to tell it that our speed is 20,000 RPM. Geometry, we're going to come here. Now, see this little red arrow? This means cut on the inside or cut on the outside. Because this is an outside contour cut and we want to trace the outside, we're going to leave this as the outside, right? So inside, outside. Now, one of the things that you're going to run into is if you cut it on the outside and you separate this from the rest of the stock, this is going to start floating around and it's going to bump around. That's why we have tabs. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to create 0.2 inch tabs. Delete that. And we're going to go ahead and select the points. So I'm going to put one here. I'm going to put one here. Switch over to the other side. Stick one there. Stick one here. And what that'll do is when it does the cutting, it'll cut through all the board, but it's going to raise up and it's going to ignore this piece. So you can cut that out with a jigsaw later, or a different cutting tool, whatever. If you don't want it that big, you can go ahead and hit 1 inch or 0.1 inch and it'll make these smaller. We can go, let's just go 0.115, right? Okay, so here's our 0.15. We'll come over to height. We're not going to retract that high. Let's make sure here. Rest machining is turned off. There is no stock to leave. Now for this, we're going to do multiple depths, right? Because we wanted to cut through a couple times. Because we're in wood, I know that I can safely do 0.1 inch of wood without too much deflection, which is where it starts bending the bit. Okay, you have to watch out for that, especially when you start going to thinner shanks, rotozip bits, etc. So we'll just do 0.1 inch for multiple depth. No stock to leave, no smoothing, no feed optimization. You can just kind of leave all that there. You can explore that later. Let's see, ramping in. You can ramp at 2 degrees. I'm going to ramp at 4. You can do lead in, that's fine. Okay, we'll hit OK here. So now it's going to generate your cutting path for the side to cut it out. And you'll see on the little blue lines here, see how it kind of comes in? Here's your red, your ramp line. And it'll cut in, and then you'll see how it kind of ramps in. Once it comes back to this piece again, it comes down, then it'll ramp in again, come down to the next one, cut it. Now, when it gets to your tab, it's going to come in, it's going to lift up the tool, come down, and then continue its cut. And it'll do that, you know, all the way through. So now we're good. Now we have our cut done, we have our cuts defined. now we got to do the post-processing, right? So first thing we're going to do, remember, here's your 0, right? You're going to go ahead and you're going to right click, you're going to hit post-process. Now if this is your first time, it's going to run through, wait, hold on. Stop here, save. Right? Always save. Always be saving. You get a couple things done, save it. In case it crashes, it's been known to happen. This way you don't have to start over from scratch. But you get a lot of good experience redoing the same thing over and over and over and over again. Come here over here to post-process. Now, if this is the first time you're going to do this, it's going to go ahead and say, hey, I have to install this, I have to install this scripting, this component, and you're going to have to reboot your whole computer. It's fine. Even if you're on Windows 10, it's going to make you reboot your whole computer. You will select tinygg.cps from this drop-down. There's tons of them out here. We're using the tinygg shield, so we're going to use tinygg. Don't worry about the output folder. You can change that. Don't worry about this. So once that's done, you'll hit post. I'll come over here, and we'll call this step 1. Cut out face. We'll save it. Now it's going to open up this little window here. This line here says the first thing you should do before anything else is go down to machine 0 and start. So here's a little tip for when you're using the Universal GCode Sender to send. All right, but let's go ahead and we'll delete this line. We don't need it. We don't want it. And we'll hit save. That's all you have to do to make sure that it's fail-safe. When you zero down, you're going to bring your bit directly to this point, which is center stock. Okay, so figure out the center, the X and Y center of your stock. You're going to place the bit right there on that dot. And then you're going to go over to the machine control or whatever, your Universal GCode Sender. You're going to close the connection and then reopen the connection. What that's going to do is it's going to set your software to 0 and your machine to 0. So both 3 columns are going to be at 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. If they're not, hit your reset 0, right? Or yeah, just reset your X, Y, and your Z. Close it, turn it back on, and then it will, make sure it's 0, 0, 0, and you're good. Go back over to your where you can jog it and hit the Z up button a couple times just to make sure it's manually cleared. And then you can go ahead and send this file that we just created. And then later, okay, once that's done, then you're going to change your bit to your bit that you're going to use to cut it out on the side. You're going to re-zero it again. And we're going to go ahead and call this step 2, cut out part. Again, we'll come out here to G00. We'll get rid of that G53, Z0. Save yes. You'll put the cutout bit directly back onto that spot. Now, there is a thing you can do, and here you go into the command window. You do G53. Okay, make sure that there's enough clearance on the bottom of your cutout bit to where you're starting out at, right? Now, as long as you don't turn anything off, you're fine. You type into the command window G53 X0 space Y0. And what that'll do is that will move your bit directly on top of where your 0 mark was. Then all you have to do is manually move your Z or your bit back down exactly to where it's touching this. Okay? Then you'll go back over to your machine control and you will go ahead and you'll close it and then you'll reopen it, and it should reset everything back to 000, 000. Go back over to your machine control, hit your Z up button a couple times so it's clearing this, and then you send your second file. All right, so then you'll send this file here, and then let it run, and then that will cut out your entire part. That's the easiest way I've found using Fusion 360 and the Universal GCode Sender on the XCarve. So hope this helps you out. Go ahead and try it. Let me know what you think. If you want to, a couple little tricks here. One, you go here to machining time. You'll see that this one here will take 54 seconds. This one here will take 3 minutes 45 seconds. Now, if you look, you'll see that it's not cutting this out. There's not enough room for the bit, and it's going to collide with this. Right? So if you want to get that cut out, you'll make this a little bigger. Maybe take it up to 7 inches by 7 inches. Do your carve the same way. Do your contour the same way, and you'll look at this and you'll see that this will all come in here and move right. So adjust your size or adjust your bits. So yeah, that's what that means. But really, in a nutshell, this is how you carve out. This is what you do to do your first piece. Good luck. If you have problems, talk to us in the forums. Yeah, that's it. Good luck, Evan, and I hope this helps.